You're listening to Bringing an Ancient Faith to a Modern World with Father Anthony Messa, where we explore ways to encourage and equip the local Orthodox Church. Let's get started. Welcome back to Bringing an Ancient Faith to a Modern World podcast. I'm Katie Karras, and I'm back here with Father Anthony. Welcome back, Father Anthony.
Thank you, Katie. Welcome back to you as well.
Thank you. And it is such an exciting time around here, Father Anthony. We are still on Zoom, obviously, for our podcast, but we are all back at church.
Yes, something that I personally know many people have been waiting for quite a long time to say we are back. Yes, Katie, we are back.
And not just at church. I mean, we're back at just saw Costco has their samples back. Stores are back open. Number counts are being lifted. Masks are being lifted. All that. So we are on our way to what we keep hearing back to normal, or like what I've heard a lot is the new normal. Pretty much everywhere these days. And what do you think of that? Like, what does that mean to you? This concept of new normal, back to normal.
The way I view it. Normal is a moving target. Normal is not stationary. What was normal in, when I was growing up is not normal, these days, not gonna be normal for our kids and when they have kids. So I feel like normal is like, I understand what people are saying. We want to get back to doing the things that we do. But the truth is that normal is a moving target. It's not a stationary thing. And the name of this podcast is Bring an Ancient Faith to a Modern World, which is our mission statement at STSA. And it's so perfect and so fitting for a time like this. When COVID first hit, us as well as everyone else was reeling, and what do we do and how do we do church, and everything has changed and it's not normal. But then, we kind of took a step back and said, this is exactly what the purpose of our mission statement is that we are bringing ancient faith, which never ever changes, to a modern world, which is constantly changing. So the way we have to approach it pre-COVID, post-COVID, for the rest of our lives is, how does the ancient faith translate into wherever the world is today? And where the world is today is different than it was a year ago. Certainly it'll be different in another year. So I get rid of this idea of like going back to normal, as much as we need to assess where's the world today and how can we bring an ancient faith in today's world, okay, knowing that most likely by tomorrow the world will change. But that's the beauty of our ancient faith, is it's the anchor. And my personal opinion is, I don't think the world is ever going to, quote, go back to normal. I see something like this. This is like one of those 9/11 moments where we will recover and we will get back to doing the things that, we love to do. But I don't think we'll ever go back to being the same as we were before. There'll always be an impact. Now, like 9/11, hopefully the impact is better. Hopefully, we have, more security and things like that, in airports. So I think the same will be of COVID. I think the world will never be the same, and hopefully that's for the better.
How does that translate to like the church environment, specifically in this like post-pandemic world? What does that look like for every Sunday when we're going back to church?
I'm speculating here, so I don't have a crystal ball that I see these things. But I think one of the ways that the world will not be the same again, I think, at least not for a long time, like huge gatherings, large gatherings. I think it's going to take some time to get back there. And I don't know if the whole, like the mega church, 1,000 people gathering together for worship, I don't know if that's ever going to come back, to be honest. I think what we're going to see is people are going to be more desiring of smaller and medium-sized churches, which, again, fits beautifully with our Orthodox model. Like the Orthodox model of church is, a relationship between, like we say, Father. We believe in confession, okay? And so that we believe in a relationship between the priest and every member of the parish. So the Orthodox model actually, again, I think is perfectly positioned for this, because we don't see the church as something which is, mega and just kind of like a factory and things like that. And again, I see the hand of God in so many things during this pandemic, that for sure there was a lot of negative stuff, but for sure God was also working. One of the things that we did at STSA, which, to be honest, God did it, we just kind of stumbled upon it, is we actually started a second location. So in addition to praying in Arlington, having services in Arlington, we started services in Leesburg, city about 45 minutes northwest of here. And the reason why we did it was out of necessity because we had to limit the numbers. So we said, if we're going to limit the numbers, why do we make everyone drive to the same location when people live from all over? And really, God really blessed that. And now both locations are starting to fill up again, seeing increase. And I kind of think that's the direction that we're going to see, is people are going to be gravitating away from, the 1,000 people inside the church and more towards some of the smaller and medium-sized gatherings. The other thing that I think, and we've kind of talked about this as in our staff meetings, is that I think people will value certain things more than other things. Okay, and specifically, one of the things that I've been saying is we need to put more emphasis on being personal versus being professional as we approach the post-COVID world.
Interesting. So I definitely think that how people view relationships, events, celebrations, we've really been forced to look at those things over the past year very differently. And so how does that, what do you mean by kind of the church itself focusing on more of the personal relationships versus the professional environment?
I think for a long time, and I'm guilty of this as well, I think it's all of us, I think there has been a focus on professional, meaning how good we can do things, how, whether it's state of the art, or how, how good the operation could be, how perfect the operation can be. And especially with us, I tend to be a perfectionist by my nature. And I guess I attract perfectionists by my nature, because that's just how we all are. We need things to be perfect. But we learned a lot during COVID. And what we learned is that personal is more important than professional, because people miss the real touch of one another. So high tech and screens and things like that, like those are okay, but that's not what people are yearning for. What people are yearning for is that connection with one another. And that means that even if it's not as professional, even if it's not as perfect, if we can connect with people at a real level, again, smaller level, more intimate level, I think that's what we saw during this past year. That's what people are craving as they're coming back to church. They're not coming back because they want high tech or they want things to be very professional. What they want is real. They want to touch people and to talk to people and to hug to people. So I think that's a critical piece that we all need to shift our mindset from professional to personal. The other thing that I think goes along with that is the whole idea, Katie, this is something we talk about a lot at STSA, which is community impact. All right, we don't like to talk about community service. Our goal isn't just to serve the community, but our goal is to impact the community. And I think during this past year, we realized how connected we all are, is that we want to think of ourselves as we kind of live in this bubble, but we saw that, we are part of really a global community, and everything we do affects one another. And I see this as the perfect chance for us to show love to the community and to endear ourselves to the community and to impact the community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And to basically say, like, we're a church. We're not like up here, like praying for you guys, you heathens, like wishing you that you would repent. Like, we're in it with you. Okay. And if we have resources that can help, like, let's do it. Like, we are all in this thing together. We're not apart from the community. And that's an important piece of Christianity, is that Christ didn't come to be far from man and tell man what he needed to do. He became one with man. He lived amongst us. Okay. He took our flesh and he lived in a group of people and spoke their language and ate with them and drank with them. And so I think this is a chance for us as a church. We have to be doing the same thing. We all saw pictures during this time of COVID, of the extremes. Okay, there's the extremes in everything, but somehow the extremes when it comes to church, those are the ones that get the headlines. Okay, no one ever talked about this doctor who doesn't believe in vaccinations and told people not to get it. We talk about the pastor who said that. Okay, no one said about this lawyer, like it's always the pastor. But I get it, like, whatever. I'm not going to get into that, but we all saw that at certain points in time that, such and such pastor is basically thumbing his nose at COVID and telling people they don't need to get it. And like I said, people in every profession, there were doctors who said the same thing, and there was lawyers who said it, and there was teachers who probably said it, but no one cares about them. It's just the one pastor who said that. And to be honest, because that was so, I was in people's face a lot. Like when people thought about, COVID spread in this area, well, it's probably from the church, probably the church gatherings. It's time for us as the church to reestablish our reputation as members of the community. We're not here to thumb our nose at them or think we're better than them or tell them they don't have faith or they need to repent. We're here as a part of the community to serve one another and to hopefully be a light into that community.
I couldn't agree more. And just to clarify, we are getting back to church very safely, right? At SDSK, we're doing things the right way, just to clarify for all the listeners.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I see kind of a theme in those 2 points, and that's a buzzword in 2021, 2020 is authenticity, and the idea of like, we kind of all struggled a lot over the last year, and we can all be very honest about that. No one needs to hide in a corner because they were stressed. Everyone was stressed for a year. Everyone was worried. Everyone felt isolated. So when we're coming back to church, we have this unique opportunity to really be authentic in how we connect with each other. When we're asking how are you doing on Sundays, I think there's like a more of a weight to it than there was a year and a half ago. So I love that idea of coming back, not to the perfect environment, not to like the lights and the entertainment, but really coming back to build that connection with each other and with God. And I think that's so powerful. But I also know on the other side of things that there's a lot of people that are really anxious to come back to church, to any kind of, group environment. It's scary after a year and a half of being, alone in your apartment or your house with very few people, to just jump back into a church where there's a couple hundred people and you're sitting, less than 6 feet away because, that's what the CDC recommends. But for a year they said you can't be, so how do you kind of ease people back in when there might be some of that anxiety or hesitation in getting back to that church environment, which we all very much need and crave right now?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, for the past year, it has been pounded into our heads. Don't take off the mask. Don't get close to anyone. Everything. I get it. So for like 1 year, it's been pounded in our head that it's dangerous to go outside. It's dangerous to be around people. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And now, the CDC is telling us, as you said, that it's okay if you're vaccinated. It's okay to take off the mask. It's okay to be around one another. And me personally, as soon as I heard this, like I was ready to party and I was ready, but I was surprised. I was surprised and not really surprised, but I was surprised in the sense that a lot of people were like, no, and still, and it's not safe and things like that. And so I get it, that the anxiety and the fear, like I get it, it's real. But here's what I want to say to all of our listeners out there. Is the first thing you got to realize is there's a difference between a rational fear and an emotional fear. A rational thought and an emotional thought. So the continued sense of fear at this point, especially if you're vaccinated, that's really who I'm talking to, as I'm talking about the people who are vaccinated. It's not a rational fear. And the reason why I say that is because the people who told us you should be afraid, we knew nothing a year ago. We didn't know anything about COVID. We never heard of coronavirus. Mm-hmm. But then a certain group of people said, hey guys, we're looking ahead and we see this thing is dangerous. And they told us to be afraid. And now the same people are saying that now, given all that we're doing and given all the measurements that have taken place, you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be afraid anymore. Like you can relax and you can, not be careless, but you don't need to be afraid. So the bottom line is either we trust those people or we don't trust them. And if we trusted them when they told us to be afraid, now rationally speaking, like we're rational, we have to trust them when they told us to not be afraid. Because the only reason we were afraid in the beginning is because they told us to be afraid. So it doesn't work rationally if you only trust half the things that people say. Okay, either you trust them as they are giving us the truth, okay, or you don't. And for me, Katie, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I trust the process. I trust the governing authorities over us. So rationally speaking, we got to be able to get past this. And 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 is a verse that I always think of, where it says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind. So sound mind, not fear, sound mind says rationally, there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay, if we are vaccinated, if we're moving forward, if we're cautious, we shouldn't let fear dictate. But emotionally, I get it. Emotionally, we're still afraid. Emotionally, we have anxiety. And I get it. But we have to classify it the right way and say it's a rational fear or an emotional fear. When it comes to an emotional fear, what I would say, my advice would just be patient and take small steps. Just take small steps and give it a try. Maybe you say, I'm afraid to go back to church. Okay, then I say, you know what? I told this to people throughout like the last 6, 8 months, whatever it is. I told people, you're afraid? Just come at the very end, come at the last 10 minutes. Okay, take communion. You have my permission. It's okay. Just come. Okay, stream the service from outside. Just come, give it a try, take communion, and then go. Okay, and just try and see. And those people did that. And then the next week, they felt a little more comfortable, or maybe 2 weeks later, and they came, maybe a half hour. And then after, and now those people, they're the ones who are, like you said, Katie, Costco is the samples. Those are the people who are in Costco right now with the masks off, taking the samples because they took a step. They took a step. So I would encourage you to do the same thing, because that's how you destroy an emotional fear. Okay, you take a baby step, and the more you do that, what's happening is you're seeing that it's emotional, it's not a rational fear. And our job is to encourage people to take a tiny step forward, push them out of their comfort zone, still being safe. Okay, I'm not saying go into the deep end of the pool, but pushing them out of their comfort zone and say, hey, give it a try. And what you'll see is that the fear is I'm not going to say entirely emotional. Maybe there's like a 10% rational. Okay, but the 90% of it is the emotional piece that hopefully we can address that way.
Yeah, that's really helpful on kind of a personal level as we ease back into everything. But what about from, like the church organizational level, if we're church leaders or we're, volunteers that kind of are trying to ease people back in, what can we do as church communities to help those who are struggling with anxiety of coming back?
I think the most important thing is that the leadership of the church is as clear as possible. Okay, what people are most afraid of now is surprises and coming to church and getting hit with something that, wait a minute, I didn't know. So I think I heard this said in another podcast I was listening to about church leadership, and he was saying the ideal is certainty. And that's our goal, is that like we wish that we could lead with certainty. But you know what? In the world that exists today, certainty is not an option. No one is certain about anything. We lost that. We lost the certainty to be able to say, for sure, this is where we're going to be in 6 months. Okay. And I remember even us, like we came up with the plan, the start of 2020 and goals. That certainty is out the window. But clarity is a close second. And Katie, that one of the things that I've been doing is I record videos pretty much weekly to our church congregation. Okay, not really every week, but these days it seems to be every week. Mm-hmm. And just to basically update us to where we're at. And I'm very honest, and I say, I don't know necessarily where we're going to be in 6 months or 3 months or even 3 weeks. I don't know where we're going, but I know this is where we're at. And again, back to my original point, the world is changing daily and weekly. The world is constantly changing. But STSA family, this is where we're at today. And this is how we're approaching it today. And let's be clear so there's no surprises. Some people, they're like, Father Anthony, your videos, they're too long. Can't you give us bullet points? And you know what? What I keep on saying is I would rather over communicate during this time versus under communicate. Like, you're welcome to not watch the video if you want, but I would rather give too much information, have everyone be more prepared for Sunday as opposed to less. And what I always say in these videos is I can't promise that you're always going to agree with me, but my promise to you is to keep you in the loop so that you're not surprised and you know what we're doing and why we're doing it. So then at least if you disagree, okay, at least you know what we're doing, and you're welcome to disagree, but I don't want anyone to show up and be surprised, okay? And this is one of the things, especially as we are heading into this next phase, I think we owe it to our churches to be as clear as possible, even if we're not certain.
Well, I love your videos, Father Anthony. I'll keep watching them. I'll relay the messages. And I think like one of the things that you've always reiterated throughout this entire pandemic is that even though the way that we had to do church out of necessity was different, that the mission of STSA of bringing an ancient faith to a modern world was the same. And kind of, we didn't have invite your friend to church Sundays over the last year and a half. But we were encouraged to share messages and share encouragement, to invite someone to a life group or a leisure group virtually. And I think that was so important. So now as we're kind of readjusting, how are we going to continue that mission within STSA, bringing ancient faith to a modern world?
Yeah, as you said, Katie, our mission, that's one thing we said in the very beginning, is the world has changed, but our mission has not. And we made sure that our members realized that, you know what, love one another as I have loved you. That didn't change during COVID. How you choose to love or how you show love to one another may be different, but the command is still the same. Worshiping God, spending time in prayer, reading our Bible, growing in faith, serving one another, okay, loving the least of these. Like, none of these things changed. And we had to continue to do those things during COVID. The way we did it had to look different. There's never a time that we're exempt from the command to love one another, or a time we're exempt from the command to grow in our faith. The only thing that I believe suffered during COVID, the primary thing I should say that suffered during COVID, was the ability to do evangelism and inviting others to church. Obviously, because there was no church service. And yes, we had online, but online is not the church. Okay, the church is the people. The church is more than a sermon or something that you can stream. Like, those are good things, and we do those things, but it's not the same. Like, my goal isn't to get people to watch our videos. My goal is to get people into our seats, okay, and into our church and into our community. So that's the one area that I do think was the most challenging during COVID, especially even when we did go back, you had to sign up and there's limits, and it's hard to tell people that, can you sign up for my church in 3 weeks and make sure you do it by this deadline? But again, now that that's over, okay, now that the restrictions, at least here in Virginia, are being lifted officially as of today, we're back. And as I keep telling our congregation, we're back and we're starting a series the first week back, okay, which is next week. And we're starting a series the first week back, which is called I Want to Know. And it is right off the bat, we are jumping into invite a friend to church, because we are back and we're doing a series called I Want to Know, which is all about questions that we struggle with and we know others struggle with. And we hear all the time questions like, how do I know Christianity is the right religion? Questions like, why should I go to church if there are bad Christians? There's so many bad Christians. Why should I go to church? Questions like, what difference does it make if I believe or don't believe? Like, you keep telling me to believe what you believe, but what difference does it make? We all struggle with these questions, and we know people out there do. So we're starting back with this series because we're trying to set the mindset. Hey, our mission, all right, we kind of taken a little bit of a backseat on the inviting others and bringing the ancient faith to the modern world during this past year. We're coming back in and we're doing it full blast, because no matter what changes in the world, our ancient faith stays the same, and our ancient faith tells us and it guides us and it instructs us and it informs everything that we do, and that always stays the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm reminded of a quote by C.S. Lewis where towards the end of World War II, there were a bunch of people debating whether or not they should just continue with their studies in seminary, if they should learn, how they can kind of ease back to this normal life. And a lot of people were just waiting for life to get back to normal, to make these big changes in their communities or in their personal lives. And C.S. Lewis just wrote, life is never normal. So I just want to encourage everyone listening, if you're waiting for life to truly get back to normal, to implement these changes within your church community, or to make big changes in your own life, you're never gonna find a time in which life is normal. There's always going to be something. So now is the perfect time to implement some of these changes in the community, to make things more welcoming for guests, and to make things easier for people to join our faith and join our communities. So we wanted to share some of the resources that we have available on our website at stsaministries.org. Particularly wanted to highlight the Welcoming Environments page. You can click on that right from our homepage, the Welcoming Environments box right there. We've got some great resources, things to keep at a connection table, how to build a connection team, and really focus on inviting people back to church, really focus on that evangelism piece that you're talking about. So you can find that on our website at stsaministries.org. Anything else you wanted to add as we kind of kick off the summer here, Father Anthony?
The only thing I'll add is I want to encourage everyone that it's time to get back to our mission. It's time to get back to our mission. We spent the last year, and understandably, last year was not focused on mission. It was kind of self-preservation. How do we keep ourselves safe? How do we do, I get it, but now it's time for us to get back to what God sent us here to do, which is our mission, bringing an ancient faith to a modern world.
Love that. Let's do it. Thanks for listening, everyone. We're so thankful to be able to get out of our houses, back into our communities. And we hope you'll take the time to make the new normal even better this year. And we've got some exciting things coming on the podcast, so make sure to follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and check out our website at stsaministries.org. We'll chat again soon. Thanks so much, Father Anthony.
Thank you, Katie.
To listen to previous episodes or access all of our free resources, join the community at stsaministries.org.